Hey everyone, thank you for joining us for the next session of our Agentic DevOps Live series. My name is Anna. I'll be your producer for this session. I'm an event planner for Reactor, joining you from Redmond, Washington. Before we start, I do have some quick housekeeping. Please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. While we absolutely encourage engagement in the chat, we ask that you please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional and on topic. Keep an eye on that chat. We'll be dropping helpful links and checking for questions for our moderators to answer live. Our session is recorded. It will be available to view on demand within 24 to 48 hours. With that, I turn it over to our speaker for today. Thank you so much for joining.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you're joining at. From today, welcome. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you to the Reactor for the invitation. My name is Andrea. I am a GitHub developer advocate, and I've been working like you with all of these amazing agentic tools and workflows. And maybe like you, I've also been pretty terrified of feeling like I don't know everything that I need to know. So if you are feeling a bit overwhelmed because every time you blink, there is a new tool, there's a new CLI, there's a new model, there is a new process, please know that we all do. Honestly, it's so hard to keep up right now. So what I wanted to bring you today was a bit more of an in-action demo-driven talk. So we've read the blog posts and we've seen the presentations and the keynotes and all of that flashiness. And those are also usually very perfectly curated. But it's going to be messy today. And if I doubted that it was going to be messy today, the fact that I tried to authenticate into the app that I'm going to demo about 15 minutes ago before we got set up with production in the background, and it didn't work, it lets me know that this is going to be as real as it gets. We're going to be doing live debugging, it looks like. But I want to bring you the story of how you can interject the current landscape of software development and the way that we're treating life cycles there into agentic ways of working. Let me know in the chat if you are working with agents already. If you are working with an agent that is not a GitHub agent, I'm not going to be mad. I think it's so important for us that we give you developers choice. So just recently we have a massive launch, and I want to see, let me see if I find that that blog post. And if you haven't read this, I'm going to post this on the chat, and I think you can only click on it from YouTube. But basically, this was one of our biggest announcements I think we've done up to date. It's been over a week, where now you actually have the power of multiple coding agents, and you can orchestrate them and you can work with them directly from your GitHub platform, which is sort of the main idea, right? Like we want to be able to give developers the choice whether they choose to use the GitHub Copilot coding agent or not. So now we welcome to the Agentic workflow family and GitHub and Agent HQ, Cloud Code and Codex agents. For those of you who were already working at the Codex agent preview, like it's great. Not a lot has changed. It's just that now it's integrated into the .com. So when you are looking at the UI, you're just working off your GitHub.com account, then you're going to have the option to assign to the agent directly from there. And we're going to see how that works in action in just a minute. So thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. I don't think the link posted because maybe I don't have rights. I don't. But lucky for us, we have an incredible producer who is going to help us find it. And I'm so sorry, Anna, but for some reason, my key binders, I'm not at home, so it's not working properly. So if you don't mind just dropping that link on the chat, that would be phenomenal. Thank you all so much. All right, well, let's get started. Like I said, any and all questions are absolutely welcome. And thank you so much for joining us from Lagos, Nigeria. I am joining you today from Bogota, Colombia, which is wild. I'm so excited to be here for just a quick couple of days. But in any case, let's get started. So there's going to be a little bit of theory, I guess, and in that I do want to cover what makes a good agent. So we're going to spend the next hour looking at how agents are changing end-to-end DevOps. Because really, DevOps was never about YAML files, right? it was about removing that friction so that software flows through systems. So we borrow from like manufacturing. Remember how card lines were set up first, and we started to optimize things. And we got super good at some parts of that, like writing code. If you already work with agents, you know how good cloud code, uh, codecs, if you use cursor, like you've seen the way that these agents work, and you see how they truly accelerate the way that we're writing code, right? Like we can write code faster than ever. But the problem is that when we don't have what happens after optimize, then we run into problems, right? So code review is still slow. Security checks, they still block in merges. And deployments are still waiting on arrivals. So really, we moved that bottleneck. We didn't solve the problem. We just kind of relocated it to somewhere else. And what's changing now is just that we have way more like this intelligent layer across the entire life cycle where we can create, we can collaborate, we can operate, and the agents are not just helping you write code anymore, but they're actually like, they do a lot more. And so now they know how to test it and can document things. They can catch vulnerabilities before you do. If you look at the github.com, and you know github.com, the platform, recently, and I think there is a blog post that has all of this data. If not, I'm happy to find that later and share it. But if you look at like our number one contributor in github.com, it's not a human, it's the Copilot coding agent. Then you look at number two, and sure, it's a human. But then you look at number three, and it's actually GitHub Copilot code review. And this is the way that we are using GitHub to build GitHub, right? So it's really interesting how this is not demo status, like these are production status. So today I'm going to show you what that looks like in practice, so you can apply that to your own projects. We're going to build one feature into a project that I've been working on. And my project is called Issue Crush. And I'll show you quickly. This is the repo for the project. It was just recently open source, so it's very messy at the moment. Please give me some grace as I was trying to clean up as best I could. But I wanted to use it. Basically, when I heard about the GitHub Copilot CLI being the SDK being launched last week or the week before last, it was really interesting to me to figure out a way to bring that agentic intelligence and like the Copilot intelligence into an application. And I wanted to do it with something that it was like fun and practical and something that I wanted to use, right? I don't know how many of you use the GitHub mobile app, which is amazing. I love the GitHub mobile app. And if you haven't used it recently, definitely give it another go because there's been incredible improvements in that app. But I built this little kind of for fun, really, for me. In the spirit of open source, I share it because I want people to be able to use it. And like most teams, when you start building them, you tend to like the scope creep, right? Like you tend to start nerd sniping yourself into doing this and that and this and that. But primarily, the main objective that I had is I have tons of issues that are assigned to me, like sometimes hundreds of issues. If you're an open source maintainer or if you're a contributor into a large code base, you know this feeling when issues are assigned to you, and you're like, okay, great. You get the notification in GitHub. Honestly, notifications have never worked for me. I know that's a pain point for most of us, especially if you're working in multiple organizations, in multiple repos, and with context from all different places. So you get assigned issues, and then you do your own personal triage. What am I ready to work on now? Sometimes if it's your own project, which was originally the main scope that I had for this application, I wanted it to just simply limit to issues that were assigned to me in specific projects, because especially if there were issues that were created and are things that I'm not going to fix or that are outside of my purview. And like for some of my open source projects, I need to add disclaimers to all of them that say basically like, this is for you, it's a gift, use it, fix it. But there are things that unless they're core to security, I'm really not going to invest a ton of time in, unless it's a project that I'm like super invested in. This is a fun project for me. So not to say I'm gonna like, forget it, but it's been shipped now in the world for all of you to make it better. But so the idea is that you're gonna use sort of like this swiping motion like you do when you use one of those dating apps. I don't want to say names, but basically, if you open an issue, you swipe right to keep the issue open, or you can swipe left to keep the issue closed. Super simple. what's different about this application is that I included the GitHub Copilot SDK as part of the application, so that we're able to use the Copilot AI to bring summaries to the issue triage process. So when you look at an issue, maybe it's not super pedantic, it's not very well explained, or maybe it's either lacking details or it has way more details than you need, or again, it's back to something that is not important to you. Part of the application has a prompt where Copilot is told to read the issue and then sort of go through its own triage process based on what's important for me in the context of how I'm triaging this issue. So for me, for this purposes, the prompt is very basic. It just says analyze the issue. And then I have it referenced in another document that says, like, those are the things that I'm going to take care of or not. But the prompts are 100% customizable. And because I have a Copilot subscription, I'm able to just, and everybody can use it because the Copilot CLI is free to use for everyone, which, by the way, is now proudly shipped on a full, it's out of preview, it's now GA as of today. So congrats to that team. They've been working really, really hard. Also, if you have not tried the GitHub Copilot CLI, please give it a go. So anyways, you have the intelligence, the Copilot CLI utilizing the SDK as a harness gives you a summary of what the issue is, and then you decide if you're going to swipe right or left, right? Very simple. I am not a mole developer. I use Expo and React because it was fun and it was good, and it did a good job, right? So again, this is open source, it's there for you. But I do wanted to share a bit of the background of the architecture of the app, because then you can see in which points we use the intelligence of the agents to create all of these integrations that are going to make it better. And you can see the workflow here. This is what's broken at the moment. The OAuth, for some reason, has decided to fail. So we're going to try and troubleshoot it. Otherwise, I'm going to show you how to assign issues and kick off the agents to work on some other things. So I'm going to show you again what that looks like when you're actually making agents work, because most of agents don't work really. So that issue crush I just showed you, again, it's a triage for GitHub issues. You swipe right, you swipe left, and you decide what issues you want to work on. So that's super clear. Copilot then analyzes the issues that I select. So that's part of the feature itself. I can select which ones I want to kick off that analysis process. But what happens sometimes for me is that I will swipe right on an issue and then I forget, I either didn't read it or I mistakenly swiped. So right now there is no way for you to undo that. So that's something that we're going to do, right? We're going to try and fix that. I want to show you the 3 ways that you can utilize the coding agents. So that's sort of, if you think about the software development lifecycle, right? Like right now, this is an application that's been launched. I've used a bit of the planning agent to create it. And then I'll show you some of the other agents that I have that are just sort of my orchestrators. I don't like doing tests, so I have an agent that's focused on that. As you can see by that sort of horrific looking UI, I'm not a UI UX person, so I have another agent that helped me sort of upskill the way up level the way that the application sort of feels and behaves. And these are all things that you can do. And the way that you can do this, you can assign it to a coding agent from your GitHub.com or from your repo if you have it on your local editor. And you can do this using agent mode on VS Code as well. I'm going to show you my insider screen here in a moment. Or you can do it if you are a terminal person. Right now, I think my terminal du jour is Rio because I've recently had them at one of my streams for Open Source Friday. Please like and subscribe to your GitHub channel so you can see those too. And it's really cool. Typically, I use Ghosty as well. You can assign issues to the coding agents from any of those entry points, which is really great. And then things happen a little bit different, right? Because before we used to just sort of iterate when we were assigning issues, or we were typing code and it was more of this autocomplete function. But now we're more on a peer level with these coding agents. So I'm doing a lot more than just telling you what the issue is. I'm giving you sort of the agency to go work on it. And so we can try that now with one of the issues that I have inside this repo. If you see in my screen, you can see that I am on the main Copilot space. And here I have like sort of all of the, let me see, all of the agents that I've used. I can orchestrate an issue to be assigned to an agent from here by just finding the repo. So you see, I just click on change the screen. And now a couple of things here that are important. This is sort of one of the entry points. We're going to look at it from VS Code Insiders and then maybe the CLI as well. And Federico, yes, this is being recorded, I believe. And uy, saludos desde Pedrito. Sorry, I get distracted. So anyways, here I am on my agent HQ, and I've now selected the repo. One of the things that the team has worked on recently, which I appreciate, is the ability you can now either add a selected different branch. So if you are working on a development task or maybe as a feature task, or you want to do some experimentation and you always have to have the security that main is not going to be touched. Even for this issue, which is open source, and again, because I literally flipped the switch, I think, to public last night. So I want to make sure that I don't, if anyone is actually going to contribute, that nothing gets messed up for you, not for me. So now you can actually swap branches, which is really great. And you can select that. So like I was working on some UX issues, so I have a branch that's specifically on that. And when I say I mean Copilot. And then I can actually select the model that I want to get the agent to go to work on, right? So here are the models that are my options right now. Here's where I give you my quick PSA on models. Honestly, they're like kids, like you can love them all, or you have to love them all, however the saying is. But more importantly, I think as you work with all of the models, and this is one of the great things that GitHub does, is that you have access to basically all the frontier lab models. Now, if you use Foundry, I'll show you on VS Code Insiders, you can actually bring your own key. You can add any of those models too. So you do have the power in your hands. It really comes up to your preferences. I know some people that really enjoy Codex for some things. They'll enjoy the Sonnet for others. The recent and most, I guess, buzz about Opus. I've seen people one-shotting websites and doing like a really good job. So again, it's up to you what model you use. I would say experiment, if you're mindful about costs, experiment with the sort of lower expense ones. One of the great things about the Copilot CLI, and now that it's fully open source, fully released and it's in GA, all of you can go ahead and give it a go and test it out, is that those requests, those tasks that you assign into the Copilot coding agent are going to cost you one feature credit, one feature premium request. So one feature, one premium request. And this is, again, it can be a feature, it can be you create this issue and it has 5-6 different things that the agent is going to work on, and that only costs you one premium request. Good, I can say it. So anyways, this is one point of entry. I can assign the issue here. I can tell it to assign, okay, go work on this issue. Or if I have not completely figured out what was wrong, I could actually ask it. And we might kick off that process here in a minute if we get our auth to start working, if we get it to figure it out what it is that I wanted to do. But let's quickly go into the actual repo for it, because I want you to take a look at the issue that I've created for the problem that I was mentioning. So here's my issue. And I think documenting your issue as well as you will document it for a colleague is one of the key ways that you can sort of improve your chances of the coding agent actually give you a response that's going to accelerate, instead of you're going to go chasing 3 or 4 different things that don't really exist. I'm going to cover in this presentation what constitutes a good agent. And this is based on like just some research that I've done, a lot of like tested, tried and true things. But again, it all comes down to personal preference. But I will show you some of the things that are based on data that we have from research internally and other data I would bring up, what makes an agent actually work the most effectively. All of this so that you can actually set up your agents for success. So I have this issue here, which actually Copilot helped me write. I say, I need you to help me explain this in a way that the agent would understand it. So you can see the points that I made. I've accidentally swiped this issue, so help me do an undo button. And now it's assigned to me, right? I can assign it to Copilot. So I'm assigning this issue to Copilot. Copilot will pick it up with the coding agent. And one, of course, of the latest news is that now I have 2 more agents that I can work with here. These are not separate subscriptions. I'm not paying a different subscription for Claude. I'm not paying a different subscription for Codex. This is inside of GitHub. This is inside of my GitHub Copilot subscription. So now I have the option to assign this task to any of the agents that I want to work with. It looks like this is I guess there is a little bit of logic that needs to go into this feature to be, it's an add-on, because the application itself is pretty small and well documented. I mean, I trust that I can select any of these agents and it will get the job done. Like, it will be fine. I always work with Copilot all the time because that's the go-to me. But let's try Codex today to see how it goes. So I'm assigning the issue to Codex, and you can see immediately, or in a few moments, the assignment of the issue will be seen here, and then we'll start seeing Codex actually spin up the coding agent. So immediately it's going to open that work in progress PR, and it's now going to work. That's it. At this point, I can walk away. The Copilot coding agent right now is exploring that code base and figure it out what it is that needs to happen for us to do the changes that we do. So I'm going to show you what constitutes a better agent first. We can take a quick look and see the session once it's spin up a little bit. But I can open the session here. And again, this I could have assigned directly from VS Code Insiders, which we're going to see that in a moment. But you can see how it's telling me, it's taking me through the entire process. I appreciate this and seeing this now. I can see the agent sessions also on Insiders. I can see it on VS Code too. It's part of the panels for the chat agent, but it's an option. You can also, if you want to disable that toggle so you don't see all your sessions, you can. But it's doing the same exploration that you would if you were assigned an issue. So as a human person, you will read it first, right? One key point here is that it's going to see, you see that I have two files here, and sorry, this might be a bit confusing because I'm testing this app with another project. So that agent's local is for something else that I'll share a little later if we have time. But the main thing is going to go and take a look at the agent's MD files. It's going to also take a look at my Copilot instructions, because it will pick up the instructions, even though it's for different agents. And then it's going to kind of go. So it's going to outline the plan. I like it. It's talking about it's missing some just and my list of dependencies. I don't think I've run the test on this in a bit. So perfect. So right now it's going to go to work. We're going to leave it there working. So again, I could have assigned that directly from here. If I didn't know what I wanted to do, I could open an issue and just assign it to the agent and just let it work. And that's it. It goes to work. Let me share my VS Code Insiders screen actually. And I was actually trying to fix the WAF before we started. So we'll let it keep running. And I'll tell you what broke there so that you can sort of empathize with me. I had a persistent state. So I was doing the way that the authentication was handled, where it was sort of, because it's local and I was running it mostly for me. But before I open sourced it, I started to use Cosmos DB so that you actually had like sort of that mask token. So for security purposes, so that when you authorize, the session is logged and it sends sort of the authorization as it needs it. And then you have a way for just basically it to sort of be ephemeral. So it's done when you're done working within the app. That is not, it's a way that works. If all of you, any of you who are watching, you have a more elegant solution to authentication for like temporary sessions and you want to submit a PR, PRs are welcome. But this is what I was showing you. So you see how now I have all of my agent sessions here. And if I do a quick refresh, I actually can see the session that I just kicked off. Even though we kicked it off from .com, you can see that I actually have this agent session here, and I can bring it up. So I can follow along with the agent as it's working. Codex is doing all these things here. It looks like there might have been some issues with the webhooks here. So right now it's going to run through all of that, following that issue. But I have the ability to iterate. So if I take a look at this session and I see that you've gone off to, for example, this was a very simple ad. I just want to add an undo button. And I start reading the description of what the agent is doing as it's work in progress and decide you completely lost, boo. I can go ahead and iterate directly from here. So I can amend the instruction. I can steer it. And this is one of the most fascinating things about the way that agent sessions work, because I completely appreciate the ability to have a human in the loop, even though this is a task that, to be 100% honest, I would have just kicked off and left. And then I would have come back and review the PR. For things that you're doing that are more complex. So when I originally launched this app, let me do a quick refresh here. I had one single file that basically had the entire application, because I started to scaffold it as again, it was just going to be just for my local use. And so I was like, who cares? It's like one giant dump of a file. And what happens when you actually want to, for one, incorporate like more key production and actually make it a real thing, it's a bit much, and it's not a good software development practice. So I did a massive refactor of it where it actually broke down the services within the application. That's something that I did using the Copilot coding agent too. I assigned that task to the Copilot coding agent, sort of explaining the architecture in the way that I would prefer it to be refactored. But that I kept an eye on because I really wanted to make sure that it was done the way I wanted to. So again, you decide when to assign and what you actually need to kind of babysit and whatnot. So it's working hard. We're going to leave it doing what it needs to do. But I do appreciate that I can see the session here in real time. And I can see not just this session, but all the sessions. Another sort of problem that we're having with this great power that comes great responsibility, right, is that now because we can assign so many agents, we need Agent HQ. We need a central point where I have all of my sessions. And you can see I have several closed sessions here. Some that I used the Copilot coding agent for, some that I did not. But we need to have a central place to see, because if you have 10, 15 agents working on different things at the same time, I barely remember what I did 10 minutes ago. It's hard to keep up. And so unless you're super locked in and you're working on one specific project, like that makes it a little bit more difficult. So again, assign here, assign from VS Code Insiders. There is a delegate function now in Insiders so that you can actually delegate the task. And I'm going to scroll down a little bit here so you can see that I actually have the options to delegate to the agents from here. Again, you have the same options that you have from that common now. So right now, we can leave it on local for now. We have our model selected there. But I want to show you some of the agents that I've created for this project. The agents, they're going to live in that GitHub. So they live in your repository, right? And you can see on my screen some of the agents that I've created for my project. There is one that's specific to the API because we have to reach into the API to actually bring the issues that are assigned to me. And so that's being done using Node because I was part of the SDK integration. And so I have very specific ways that I want the agent to work here. And you see that's kind of methodical. I have first a very intentional description. I'm telling you exactly what you're supposed to do. So you actually have everything that you need for you to start working. If I didn't have a specific set of instructions for this API agent, it will use the generic, like it's fine, whatever the model I'm using, it will use generic information, it's fine. But here, when I create my custom agent, I actually have the possibility of hone it and make it as specific and to work as I like it to work. So for example, the sample we see on the screen, like there is some quick commands. I'm telling you the tech stack. I'm telling you the architecture of my project, what external APIs I work with, where it can operate. And this is one of the things that I've been using as a personal preference. And I'll go back to the presentation so we can see it a little bit more explicitly said. But it's one of the characteristics of what actually makes a coding agent effective. Again, this is like just based on personal experiences. But I definitely, if you've been feeling like you've been assigning to agents and you're not getting the results that you want, I will encourage you to go back to the way that your agents are spelled out. And that way you're able to actually hone it in. These are sort of the 6 things I'm breaking it down. Like having the specific persona, that's what we just saw, where I told it you are a backend expert. Just assigning it to the agent is like giving you an issue and telling you to go to work and not giving you specific details. The executable commands, which were part of that file, then having an example output. So you already know how you like your test done. You can actually create an example of your test logic and copy and paste it into your agent file. So the agent now knows exactly how you want that written. And this is the part that we were getting to, what I wanted to show you quickly. Part of this, the 3 A's. Not sure how well known this concept is. It might be more well known than I'm giving it credit for, but I stumbled upon this because I was trying to understand, and I read a ton of boring papers, so you don't have to. Me and the agents had a long couple of weeks doing that. But setting up these boundaries with these AAAs is really improved the quality of the work that the agents are doing for me. So, for example, the first boundary here for this API agent is like, always do without asking. These are the things that I'm comfortable for you to do without coming back to me and giving me, can I YOLO this, right? Then always ask, get confirmation first. This is super important. If I'm modifying any endpoint behavior, I don't want you to break the way that you're actually looking at what issues are assigned to me. So that's it. And then hard limits. And here is where you can actually be as restrictive as you want. So you're telling the agent, okay, you have these 2 things that you can work with, but this is where the buck stops. So you're never going to log sensitive items. There's a lot of security baked in, like for the Copilot CLI, for the coding agent. Right now, if you were to send a task to the agent that included a secret, like it would automatically block the call. That's the work that this GitHub Security Lab is doing to prevent that from happening. And now that's actually baked in to the CLI, where it will prevent those secret push. But, it's okay. You can still be as safe and secure as you want to, and you can give the agent to those instructions. And then I'm giving it the API patterns, the sort of the structure. The tech stack and versions is also another important part of making an effective agent work, because if you're working with a project, and we all have a lot of legacy projects, that if you're working with a project that's using like a version of, I don't know, of React as 2, 3, 5, whatever, however many times removed, and you're giving the agent an instruction to go and do X, Y, or Z, you want to give it the specific version that you're working with. That's going to help the agent guide. So it's not, if there is things that have been deprecated from that version update of React, instead of going looking for those, it already knows, oh no, that's not how React 16 works. So that's what I'm going to do. So I found that giving it like specific stacks and the versions has been very, very helpful. And then the context and knowledge, again, we go back to the insiders, just explaining why this even exists. And then I created a couple of security checklists here, right? So this is one particular agent. Again, I want you to understand the power that you have in orchestrating the way that you want the agents to work for you. The hardness, what the agent does, who you assign it to, that's entirely up to you. And now you have options for 2 more coding agents that you can assign the work to. And they will read this. They will respect technically, they will respect your preference here. These are some of the agents that I have within this project. I have a deployment agent, and you can see how you can actually be very granular about the tools that you give it access to. This is another awesome and powerful thing about agent workflows, that you can, if you're working with MCP servers that are, obviously the GitHub MCP server comes baked into the GitHub CLI and the GitHub coding agent, which is amazing. But say you're working with Notion, or you have any other MCP servers that you like to call, you can give the tools only the access that you want them to here. So like for this, you only need these 2 things. Again, and we follow that, how it actually is giving me all of the logic. And then I actually started this as an agent, but I turned it into a skill. And I saw a question on the chat that I think is a good opportunity for us to take a look at, about the difference between using agent skills and just having your projects well documented, what's needed for each feature or issue fix. And that's actually, this is part of the confusion, because we're calling everything the same, and it makes it kind of impossible, right? So when you have the skills, that's a documented way. If you think of a repeatable process, something that you're always having to do. So like for testing things, you know that every time you're going to deploy something, I'm going to deploy a new version of Issue Cross probably by the end of the week. I'm going to make sure that this time, for the love of all of you, I'm going to run very rigorous tests on it. So I know that I need a repeatable process to do that. That's a good job for an agent. So that's a good way for me to have an agent skill. Could it be an agent? Could it be a skill? Yes. Could it be part of my documentation, where I said before we deploy to before we deploy a new version into production, we want to make sure that we do rigorous testing. Yes, but this way you're actually able to have this in a repeatable state. It's powerful in that this is a project of one. It's just mine. It's open source. If you're working at a company in an organization that is using coding agents, and say you are the testing expert in your company, right? You get to write the agent specifications to the way that testing should be done. So it's not only a repeatable process for just you, but now your friends at whoever, if you have like an experimental feature group, if you have your friends that are working just with the UI, now they all have the power of the way you work, and they understand how the agent would better understand how testing is done, because you can share skills, yes, but you can also share agent across the organization. So if you're running an organization and you have, this is the way that we deploy, this is the way that we write documentation, these are things that you don't want them to live on silo skill folders per project, per repo. You can pin things to your, and I'll show you how to create an agent here so we can see that workflow, because that would explain a bit more in depth how that works. But this is a way that you can share the power of the agents that you created across organizations. And so organization admins have a lot of control into, because not everyone needs to be creating agents, and they can actually decide who has the controls to actually create agents and who can actually use the agents that are created. So that's sort of a bit of a difference between skills. Yes, well-documented code. I mean, I'm a super fan of, if it's documented and readable enough for your colleagues, then an agent is going to actually have a higher rate of success actually reading it using that same logic, right? So I think documenting and like writing commits are worthwhile. Like all of those things still matter. But if you're working with agentic workflows, having the specific sets of instructions for your custom agents, it's gonna give you sort of that next step, that next layer. Let me scroll down a little bit, and I'll show you how to create an agent here. Let me take a quick look and see what the next slide was, so I don't. Oh, we were gonna go back and look at that skill. I'm sorry, at that work in progress PR. So let's go back to that PR and see what it did, and then maybe we'll see if maybe it actually did what we needed to do, right? So it went back and looked at these files to figure out what I wanted it to do, following the instructions from my repo. And one really kind of meta thing that we can do here is we can actually get this code review by not just me, but we can actually assign Copilot to be a reviewer of this PR. And so now that the work is done, it was done by Codex, right? We selected that coding agent because we wanted to try it out. But now I'm going to tell Copilot go review this PR, and actually it's going to use the Copilot code review agent to do that. And so we'll give it a moment for it to come up with those reviews. But you can see the example, like here on the example code, it's telling me, okay, this is what you used to do. This is the problem that you have. It's giving an example of how that worked in the process of the keep or do. And then it's actually showing me what it is. So technically, I mean, let's look at the code. It made one change, which kind of makes me suspicious. But we'll run it locally and see if it actually did what it was meant to do. In the meanwhile, while Copilot is actually doing the code review for us, it can analyze not only the PR that's open for, yeah, it actually did the thing. We're moving beyond security, beyond like the things that a coding agent review can do. So like when I'm reviewing this code, I'm going to review from my point of view, but you can actually use the Copilot coding agent to review it even further. And so there are custom instructions that I had set up for this project that are specific as to how code review can be done. So now the coding agent is going to look at those too. And you're not only reviewing for code quality, but you're also reviewing for security points. And that's a great way to collaborate, right? So iterating again back to that main issue of like, when do I do a skill? When do I do an agent? When do I just document that? As I mentioned, you have a repetitive task, like your test coverage, your accessibility audits. Oh my gosh, friends, this is something that is huge. A lot of us take accessibility for granted until you need it. You don't even think about it. This is such a low lift. Please, all of you, if you want to test this into any of your workflows, add an accessibility agent and have Copilot help you write it. If you work for a company that actually has beautifully documented accessibility like instructions as to how, if we're internally at GitHub, that's how, if you are going to add a feature, it has to pass obviously a process of reviews, but part of that includes a very rigorous accessibility assessment. And so if that's also very well documented, just dump that documentation into Copilot and have it create a coding agent, an agent for you that's going to actually reference all of that. So you have this one agent ready for you. Most of those files, again, don't work for the reasons that I mentioned earlier. There was a lot of folks that were sort of dumping like just thousands of characters into an agent file, and then later we figure out that actually that doesn't make it better. The other project that I was mentioning is about context, and I will share a little bit because there's a lot of research as to how, like, if you limit it to 120 characters, I think it's got a higher success. And this has nothing to do with context window. It just has to do with the logic, the way that the agent is actually read. So we've been through this. We've seen how we have our specific persona, we have our commands, and then we have our output, reminder of the 3 A's, right? So that we know exactly what it's supposed to do and what it cannot do, those hard limits. And the reason these hard limits are like this never exist and this hard limit exists is, again, because like most of these things happen because you had an experience, and that's what informed me, making sure that I always use that never as part of my agent instructions, as assigning an error, doing testing, which I, again, mentioned earlier, I don't like to do. And agent interpreted this as a fix because for the most part, like, I want to make you happy. And then it just took all the failing tests and delete them. And that is not a good software development practice. So now that is a very specific line on my testing agent instructions that we don't do that. Again, it's about giving it the restraints that it needs so that it actually gives you the outputs that are going to accelerate your work. No point investing the time in setting up the agents if when we're assigning a task to them, they're not going to work how they should. And you're going to end up doing twice the work again. Back to the point about assigning the tech stack specifically, it's just going to help you prevent that the agent is referencing outdated suggestions and adding the context knowledge. And these are things that only a human would do, right? You can even be very pedantic. If you have ADR files that are like referencing that repo, or you have that context saved in a Notion, you can use MCP to bring it. However you register those sort of decisions you make as a team, you can tell the agent, go look at that. And that's also another set of instructions, right? So I have my agent team, which is what you saw, all these little specialists with boundaries. Let's create one so that we can see, before we take a look at agent chaining, so that we see what that looks like first. And you can create agents in multiple ways. You can create agents from .com. So from that same place on Agent HQ, where we can see, let me get rid of this banner here. It's okay. And you can see that when I go to assign to the agent, I actually have the list of custom agents that are my custom agents here in this project. So you see, when we took a look on the insiders, that you can see that I have this API, this deploy, the docs, open source, etc. But so from here, if I wanted to create a specific custom agent, I could. And what it's going to do is going to open a template file for me that's going to basically sort of give me the main logic of what I need to include here for me to create a new agent. That's one way to create it. It gives me some basic instructions here. You see that there is no specific tooling, and there isn't much of a template. It's just sort of creating that document. If you are creating it this way, it's going to automatically route what it needs to be, which is great. But you can also do this from your text editor, right? So I have my list of agents here. You see that there is now some more agents. And the reason for that is because there are some agents that are here I created, they're assigned to me as a user level, but then there are some other agents that are created for organizations that have been shared. And this is what I referenced earlier when I said, if you are the super cracked out person at testing, and then you can create an agent that will do that for you, for your team, and then you can share it, right? So like we have some about how we do releases. We have some for performance advisors for MongoDB databases. Again, these are all specialists. And some are created by me. Some others that have been shared for at an organizational level. So let's say I wanted to configure that custom agent and I wanted to create a new one. The same thing. I just click create a new agent. And here's where it gets really fun, because I can actually give it instructions as to where I wanted to go. If I wanted to go under just under my user level. Then I would just enter the name. And let's call this one Reactor, just for the purposes of demo today. And you can see how now it's giving me this template. And the template on Insiders looks a little bit different, which is interesting because it's actually giving me a little bit more arguments that I can add and a little bit more in description. So that's an interesting difference from the .com one. So I create my agent here. Let's say I wanted to create my agent. I don't know what I want this agent to do. What can this Reactor agent do? While I think about that, I'm going to scroll through the chat and see if I'm missing something. Agent skills, okay. Do you have an agent's guideline for testing to avoid 180 tests? I think that comes down to that personalization within the testing agent itself, right? So that can be part of that never structure. And this is some behaviors that we see with certain models too, that, outside of agents, how I think there was a point in time where like Sonnet was creating like 50,000 markdown documents for everything that it did different. It's driving me crazy. So now I was part of my custom instructions when I use those models. Just don't. So you can actually add that as part of this sort of ask allowed and never. Add it as a hard limit here. And we'll take a look at other ways that you can personalize that in a bit. How do you manage the number of credits that are consumed by agents? That's an excellent question. So here's what I can speak of. The Copilot coding agent, like now with the Copilot CLI, 1 premium request. So start there. I think that's a super complicated topic, right? You are able to see your expenditure when you're using Copilot. So you are able to see, mine looks a little bit different because I'm using the enterprise account, but you are able to see sort of where you are. I'm a big fan of, you don't need, you don't need a hammer to push a pin into the wall. Yeah, I'm terrible with saying but sometimes we just need the power that we need. So think about what you're trying to build and what makes a good task for a coding agent first. And that would be one way to protect your credits and your premium requests. Again, bit biased here, but it's the way that I've been working to. It's excellent for the Copilot coding agent. I just assign 1 task, 1 premium request. But I think there is a lot of work being done there by the teams also to sort of improve that. Now that we're doing a lot of people doing this chaining of agents, the consumption rates, like for some of you who pay for specific model like tokens or you using services that require you to touch an API for that particular service, like you're feeling that. So I would say, for the purpose of like figuring out what's going to work for you in expenditure, start with the Copilot coding agent, assign the tasks that 1 premium request. You can't beat that. And then for other things that are more specialized, if you want to use the harness of like Claude or Codex, and there are more common, then you can kind of get a feel. You get a feel for what that is. One advantage of doing it that way, instead of paying different subscriptions, is that you're paying 1 subscription versus paying multiples. Hidden rate limits, how to manage more effectively. Yeah, that just kind of goes back to that same kind of point of figure out if you need a hammer or just your finger to push that push pin on the wall. And then let's see. I'm kind of scrolling, and I'm sorry if I'm missing your comments. A repository and IDEO through project organization. So yeah, I think you're able to use the exposable agents. One thing for ADO folks, and like I would say right now, it's a good time to kind of take a look and see what that would look like. Like when I think the guidance is not that you're gonna migrate every service out of ADO, but like looking at GitHub as the place where your things live is not a bad idea. I would love to share with you, and maybe if I don't get it right now during the stream, because I want to go back to show you a few more things. Mr. Saduk, if you could send me a DM, I will get back to you with some of the things that our enterprise team has been working on, as well as a couple of other resources. Dave from my team does a phenomenal job at sort of going through everything enterprise related. And I mentioned this publication that he does every month, because just recently he had an excellent way of looking at the migration and like thinking about what should say, so just DM me and I'll send you those things. All right. And let me go back. And to clarify, if I choose Claude as an agent, will it consume 1 premium request? This is an amazing question, actually. I love that. I love that for me because I don't know the answer. So how about I ask and I come back to you? I know for sure with Copilot Coding Agent, and I think so, but let me find out. Let me find out for you, and I will come back and let you know. Let's quickly go back to this presentation. And thank you all so much. Like I love when I'm not just talking to myself here, even though I'm by myself. Like it's amazing to actually be able to like talk to more people. If you've seen the craze that is being like online, like OpenClaw and all the sort of chaining agents and getting agents to work like 24/7. For what I'm here to tell you, like you don't have to do that. Like if you don't have an army of agents running things in your sleep now, like it's fine, it's okay. Maybe you don't have to. It's been really fun to experiment. Uh, some of the like the YOLO flag now on the Copilot CLI, like I love that for some things that I know that's like table stakes. I know you can do this. And if it breaks, it's not gonna break something that's super important. So just take that into consideration before you go and run all these experiments. But now, the way that it works, really, you can do this agent chaining. You can use sub agents. The part of the agent orchestration I really appreciate now is being able to call sub agents from your main agent. So let's say you have an agent that's focused on, I don't know, testing or even the deployment one. You can have that main agent orchestrator you are the deployment agent, and that logic is not broken down in this project again because I've been doing other things, and I'll share a bit about that a little later. But like say for the deployment agent, like that could be part of this. Like this could be my agent, my main deployment agent, and then I will have a sub agent there that actually is gonna make sure that the testing that I think needs to be done is done. So technically, the testing agent could be a sub agent of my deployment agent. Whatever other steps that are part of your sort of deployment train and things that you want to make sure that get verified and they will make sense as a sub agent because again they're a repeatable task. That's a good use case for them. And then you can just assign the thing and then just come back or go to sleep and come back, right? Using the Copilot SDK has been great to obviously just be able to access the Copilot CLI. It's like 2 or 3 lines of code for you to do that. The way that I think I discerned the Copilot SDK, because when we're first talking about releasing it, I was like, I'm not like, is it another service? And finally, it kind of clicked in my brain. I want to share this to you candidly. I don't think it's in our documentation. This is the Andrea way of looking at it. That realistically, that Copilot subscription for you right now is infrastructure. It's not just autocomplete. It's not just one single agent. It's infrastructure. You're able to do a lot more when you bring the power of the SDK. The SDK is fully open source. So please go by the SDK repo. That team has been super busy doing a lot of awesome things. There are multiple languages that are supported now, that are supported officially from the team. These are the ones like it's Node, Python, Go, and .NET. So basically any project that you have, you can sort of use this. But there are some community supported that are unofficially maintained. There are some of, actually, I want to say like the Rust one, the C++ for sure, and the Clojure, they're maintained by either people that work at GitHub or Microsoft, because they also want to see those languages supported by the SDK. So I don't know if eventually that team has been cooking. Eventually, I'm sure there's going to be a lot more options for you to integrate with the SDK. But for now, just know that there are some community maintained ones, and then there are some that are part of the official. And getting started with the SDK is so easy. You can, for example, for the application that I have, and I can show you, we can go back to the app. We'll take a look at our PR and see if that review is done, if Copilot actually did our job for us here. We'll see. And no, it didn't like it. So here's where I failed. I told you I assigned this to Copilot, but the work had already been done, right? But the PR was on draft form. So I'm going to unassign and reassign there, and then we'll see. If not, I can very explicitly say, review this PR. Actually, let's do both things. That way, we make sure that we're doing what it needs to be done. So part of this iteration cycle, again, this was my sort of input field because we were here, but we could have done that from insiders too. But let's go back. I want to show you quickly the part of the code where you can see that. And actually, I might have a slide with it. But if not, then just give me 1 second and we'll find it. because it's literally you're doing the installation. I think because I broke it apart into separate services. I can't find it anymore. I'll find it now. We'll do a search here, and that's not gonna work from there. Hang on 1 second. We'll see how good is the new semantic search. Have you used it? So now you can use search in natural language if you're opted in, which is really great. It's really great because then it's giving you a lot more possibilities for you to do searches. Like you don't have to do the specific. You see, like before, like this, I would have to do like is issue, is open, is or assign. But now I just use natural language. I'm opting into this feature, and you do have to do an opt-in for it. I have the instructions somewhere. I'll share that with you in a moment. But you can see the AI summaries, and there's one right here where the installation actually is. And you can see it on the package. But basically, when it runs through, it's like an npm install, like you would any other dependency. But it just npm install the Copilot SDK, and that's it. Super simple. All right, let's go back here and see what's after this. We talked about the Agent HQ announcements. We talk about now you actually have the power of more than just GitHub. Please read that blog post. I think Anna was kind enough to share it for us earlier. And I am working on the question of how many per session. And I think the answer is per session, just 1 credit. I am working on that answer to get you a more official one because I should have done that. I want to start wrapping up and I'm so sorry. I was going to try and show us a PR, but I yapped too much. For you to just take this into consideration, that even though the agents are working great, even though we have our 6 points and we're going to be writing, all of you are going to go and write agents that are like beautiful. Just kind of keep a realistic approach as to what it is, not only for optimization, but also for taste. We must not lose taste in software development, please. So I think from the research that I've done, from seeing how teams work both internally and externally with the coding agents, when we have a more realistic expectation of where the agent can take us, it makes a big difference. People that I've seen be very successful on using them, they have the realistic expectation that it's going to get me about 70% there, but then I need to bring my judgment and my taste into it. In Copilot, we're using Copilot to build Copilot. Like you saw, we are the number 1 contributor to the Copilot code base is Copilot. And then also now with the Copilot code review, which is great. So we covered a ton. I want to go back and see if that PR review finished, and then we can see if we can actually deploy it quickly. And if not, then maybe you can come back. You can come back to I'll go back to this specific, maybe I'll find it on YouTube and I just plop you a little demo in there so you can actually see it. But let's take a look at is requested my review. Okay. So now Copilot actually came back. And again, it was my error for not making sure that the PR itself was ready for review. But it's saying, okay, it's doing this, it's doing that. And it's actually saying that there is a minor edge case where the API fails. So this is amazing, our Copilot code review, because now instead of me testing it, running it locally, and arriving at the same conclusion, oh, wait, the API call is failing, I can just tell Copilot to go fix it based on that review. So yes, fix it, and just say, and what that will do is it will spin up another session, and it's gonna go and fix that specific the points of the review, and you'll see it here. So it's gonna go. It will create the new session here, and then you'll see it start populating. And then when I'm ready to merge, I'm ready to merge. I'm ready to deploy it, and it's all gone. So coming soon, hopefully, we'll get the site live now, and you'll be able to contribute to it, please, if you like, if you're into it. Work, so I could show you it did. Oh, yay. Okay, brilliant. So this is what it looks like now. We use the SDK, remember, to be able to have these AI insights. So because I have a Copilot subscription, and you can use the GitHub Copilot CLI, now GA, with your Copilot free as well. You don't need a subscription. I can add the Get Summary, and we'll see if this is because it was definitely failing earlier. It's going to take a moment because it's going to sort of run that insight, but you get the gist of it. I'm able to do a quick triage of all of my issues. It's responsive, so it will work because I'm not a mobile developer. And then there were a couple of things. This is where I want that undo button to go. So once that's done, hopefully that undo button is going to show up here, and it'll be able to get us to where we can actually recover issues that we accidentally close. Right now, this has got a repo scope, a public repo scope for me. So you can see all of the issues that are assigned to me that are public, but you can be as narrow. And as far as the AI insights, which I think is failing at the moment, the SDK is letting me down. But I think it's part of my issues that I had with the flags a moment ago. Oh no, here it goes. You can read the summary. The summary is a direct result of the prompt. And if you go to the code base, you can see what logic I gave that I wanted Copilot to make important. But you can make that as granular as possible for the specific project and for any way that you're bringing in Copilot CLI as part of your project. So for this, I just say, give me a recommended action. That's part of my instructions. Am I ready to execute this? Am I not? If it was like a sort of a spammy issue or something that I didn't want to deal with, then I can just go ahead and close it out. And then it stays closed. And then you see that error. So the error exists where it wasn't persistent. You saw the toast come up and it said undo, but then it's gone. And that's exactly what Copilot found. So it's working on it now. Once it's done, we'll be able to merge this pull request, and hopefully that will be fixed. But that is it for me for today. I'm going to start wrapping it up. It's being wrapped up. Just keep in mind that this is all amazing tooling that you can use. There's a ton of intelligence and things that you can bring to agents, but you still need to be there for taste, and fundamentals matter now more than ever. Remember that 70-30 split. Please don't forget that. I forgot to add my screenshot here because I was updating the UI. I wanted it to look pretty for you all. But I have these resources here. This lives on this little handle. It's a HTML little slide presentation there. So just if we can drop that, Anna, that'd be great so that folks have access to this. This is a phenomenal talk by one of my colleagues on how we are using the Copilot coding agent internally to get out of technical debt. And there is a lot of that. So please watch it on your spare time too. If Anna does me a huge solid of sharing that, then you can see that. And I also write a newsletter just full of developer fundamentals, some rantings, but hopefully very value-add things for you. Thank you so much for being with me today. I appreciate you, Paulo. Thank you for being here. Let's connect, please. Send me a LinkedIn request. I will accept it. Follow me on the hell that is Twitter, but it works. But I love to bring you more resources. And then if you are into a Tinder style application that has AI summary intelligence and you want to be a part of this wild little ride, please come to this repo and contribute. It needs a lot of work. It is a lot of work. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Anna, for the production. And I think that's it for me. I appreciate you all so much. This was such a fun one. I felt like I had people here with me. I wasn't on my own. So I love that. Thank you. Thank you. I owe you a question and answer about the premium request. I want to say yes, it's 1 per, regardless of the agent that you choose. I think that's part of why it's a big deal. But I will come back to you. But for now, know that the Copilot CLI is now GA. Know that you can use it with your free subscription. So you can go and assign 1 issue, no matter how many tasks, it will be 1 premium request. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Anna. I think I'm done. Let me go back and make sure I'm not missing anything. Yeah.
Thank you all for joining, and thanks again to our speakers. This session is part of a series. To register for future shows and watch past episodes on demand, you can follow the link on the screen or in the chat. We're always looking to improve our sessions and your experience. If you have any feedback for us, we would love to hear what you have to say. You can find that link on the screen or in the chat. And we'll see you at the next one.